From the 1840s to around 1910, a popular form of entertainment in a carnival setting would be something called the freak show, essentially creating a profit out of the exploitation or employment of those with genetic rarities. The culture fully embraced this idea as an enjoyable pastime, and if you look closer, it reveals a lot about the mindset and morality of the Victorian people. The Era was a newspaper highly regarded for its opinions and perspective concerning the theatrics, acts of the stage, and all things entertainment, really. If you were concerned with whether or not a show was worth going to, you consulted the Era. In every issue I read concerning these freak shows, though, the most painful affliction to the reviewer or the critic was the weather the day of the visit. This was a regular Saturday for Victorian English men and women. Get changed, maybe pack a lunch, go to the fairground and see the freaks. Put yourself in the position of an onlooker. These exhibitions were shock-oriented, so you would pay to have the spectacle revealed to you. And you wouldn't be shown as much as a scale on a mermaid's tail or a hair on the missing link's elbow. To attract your attention, there were these stylized and over-exaggerated illustrations depicting genetic and developmental impossibilities beyond all imagination. There's hardly a chance that what's behind the curtain, under the tent, or in the cage will look anything like what's in these pictures, but your price of entry is the only thing that proves it to your eye. You have to take the risk. The idea of paying to pull back the curtain reveals not only the fabricated horrors and morally gray surface-level entertainment, but also the agenda of the paying customer. The reality is, behind the curtain is nothing but altogether faked, or at least untruthful, depictions of genetic variation. Certain now considered natural conditions, such as dwarfism or gigantism, were paraded as impossible anomalies. In the early 1880s, a 4-year-old Laotian was taken from her family because of a condition she was born with called hypertrichosis, which presents itself in the form of excessive hair growth all over the body, as you can see, and it's extremely rare. The common name for hypertrichosis is werewolf syndrome. At the time, there was no treatment or even real management for this kind of condition. Her name, since her capture, is Crow Farini. Crow would still know her real name if she hadn't been seen as less than human, though. She was transported like a product as something to be experienced, and large crowds gathered to see the under-evolved missing link. Rumors aroused throughout London that she had multiple rows of teeth, pouches in her cheeks, and double-jointed knuckles. To make it any clearer that she was not viewed as a human being, she was exhibited out of an aquarium in London. Many historians have pointed to Crow's case as one which highlights the inherent ideas of imperialism and racial hierarchy which sit right in the center of freak show entertainment. White British conquerors would steal a young girl from Laos and advertise her as an animal, and white British beholders could dehumanize a dark-skinned little girl with hair on her face, and it would only make them feel that much more evolved and developed. The most notable and lucrative acts could have made up to what works out to about $1,000 a week in today's money. But this was not the case for most, and since Crow was taken as a child like many other performers, she wasn't paid at all until the age of 16. So why should we care? This was over 100 years ago, and surely our lives are much different from those of the 19th century. But I would argue that even through the lens of modern classification and what appears to be a more accepting mankind, there are still serious problems with how we, as generally healthy, lucky, average people, without being defined by a condition, syndrome, or genetic rarity, view those who are. I think the root of all these problems starts in the mind and through the senses. Victorian people were eager to define what it meant to truly be a human, to be a person. They would read of conjoined twins Chang and Eng in America and wonder what constitutes an individual. They would see Crow displayed and exhibited in London and wonder what makes up an evolved, developed human person. But the problem of exploitation and unfair treatment boiled down to how they viewed these people as less than themselves, simply because of their appearance. If anything, this should encourage us to be mindful of the way we view others and their differences. No two people are identical in every single aspect of appearance, personhood, and mind, so to define and belittle one by his or her appearance feels as outlandish to me as putting some person under a microscope or through an X-ray to judge them for having different looking organs or cells than ourselves. Differences should be celebrated in the same way similarities often are, rather than put on a scale of most to least acceptable or desirable. The two aren't so different after all, and the only thing we all have in common is that we're all different.